Heyo, this is cool. This is an individual replay review for a Tin Can. This is for a Humpback Rainmaker game against Seed 7 in SOS, and let's just get started. It is a S-Blast replay review. Uh, Me personally, I quite enjoy S-Blast. It's one of my more favorite weapons in this game. And generally, what I will say, just to start off with, is I tended to notice a bit of hesitation when it comes to picking most of our fights. This opening fight is a very good example, as we'll see in a moment. Just opening up, we see that our brush is immediately taking a lot of attention away from this blaster, and soon enough, another player here. But in response, we don't actually like walk in or try to close our gap. We kind of play our long range mode, which doesn't even hit them. We kind of just end up wasting a lot of time here in this position, which in turn will get us killed because of the decav here. This could have been prevented just by being a little bit more aggressive the second we notice that it's a blaster. If it was like, let's say for example, if someone like the decav or basically like any of the other weapons here were to drop, then that'd be a lot more problematic. Maybe not so much the gal in this scenario, but definitely if it was the decav or the dually sculpture, I wouldn't recommend not walking in. However, because we notice that it is the blaster dropping in, I would say we can just go in and try and diff them. Especially because that position is quite awful for a blaster to be in, since they're turning their attention away from the entire angle. But because we kind of stick here and do long range mode, we end up dying in the process. And skip ahead. So we immediately go in for a jump in, which is fine. It is technically faster, but I really wouldn't be jumping in most scenarios, especially when we're kind of in this sort of spawn area, if that makes sense. Swinging back, even with like a weapon like Blaster, does have a lot of advantages, mainly with the paint back there. Any sort of paint, like anywhere, is good, but painting up for special slowly over time is generally preferred, especially when we're going to be in a defensive situation. Now, this position that we take here is mostly fine. The only issue I have with it is we end up kind of locking ourselves in the spot, especially if we lose anyone guard like defending here. And it makes it a very awkward angle, especially if the enemies start rushing us down. As a blaster, we do have the advantage of AoE, but at the same time, we don't want to make it very apparent that we're already there, because it makes it very easy to counter back this sort of position. It also restricts us in terms of movement, as we can see here. Thankfully, it works out, and we do get a pick here, which is really good. Really good pick there. The other thing, and this is kind of where it goes back to, after we get a pick, we kind of hesitate on what we want to do and where we want to go. Generally, like as we can see here, we're kind of hesitating on what to do here. Like we don't know if we want to take care of whatever's here on the plat. We don't know if we want to walk in and support the push in mid. We kind of just play this spot for an extended amount of time, not really getting anything done, like any other part of the map. With S-Blast and pretty much any other AoE weapon, you want to hard focus certain spots of the map, because it basically clears people out of those spots, but more importantly, it pressures those areas of the map. Even if you're not putting down that much paint, the fact that you're putting down like some sort of threatening chip damage is very important. If you end up wasting most of your time either just like kind of sharking a spot or not really moving too often, you kind of get stuck in the scenario of, well, you're either going to be overwhelmed by options later on down the line, like in this case here, where it's just like, well, I'm not sure where to go. Should I follow up with my team? Should I just stay back in case of a flank over here? Or should I just go ahead and try and take care of someone else? If you don't end up making a choice first, it ends up being a problem later, is what I would say. This is a pick here. When it comes down to it, anytime you go into a scenario where you're in a close range fight, whether it be like any close range fight, I would immediately swap over to short range mode. That's mostly because if you have the space to back up, it's going to be a lot harder for the enemy to push you, especially with the massive AoE difference, compared to long range mode. If you can hit the shot with long range mode, it is faster to kill, but again, you have to guarantee that you get that hit with the long range mode. So generally, I would suggest for most players to swap to short range mode and just back up if needed. If you have to close that gap, or prevent them from closing the gap, I should say. We get picked by Decav there, mostly because we just didn't have anywhere to go. Make sure your feet are painted whenever you're taking a fight, by the way. It doesn't really matter like what position it is. This is a good pick. Very easy. I think we kind of waste our time with the Rainmaker there. We're not really going to be able to pop it anytime soon. Like, that's just not something our weapon is really capable of, especially in that scenario. I'd say we kind of end up wasting too much time against the Kraken there. Either we kind of just sit around waiting for them to do something rather than kind of either ignoring them outright or just trying to get a better position. It feels like we're kind of baiting the Kraken to follow us rather than trying to not care about it, I'm not sure how to explain it, but it's just more of a, we give the Kraken too much leeway to do its thing. We don't really want the Kraken to gain space, and what I mean by that is, obviously the Kraken is not, it's invincible, but the teammates that are going to be pushing around it, like the Rainmaker in this case, are not. So you want to make sure that anything that is behind or next to the Kraken is not going to be able to walk in as effectively. And it felt like in this particular scenario, you were just kind of waiting for it to do something before you act in response. Oh dear. Sorry, that was the initial timer, so I will move on along. So yeah, I would say just be more confident in terms of moving. Even if you die, it still prevents the Kraken from getting away with something like that. As long as it's out of position. This is a good pick. When it comes to like a Booyah Bomb, I know like 3 people went down, so this Booyah Bomb has a lot less value. I would say instead of using it where you're about to, which is like around this area, I would say instead of that, try to use it in an area your team is going to be pushing towards. I know for a fact, like, you probably noticed someone over there, but it's more effective and more useful to start pinning up the area ahead if you end up using a Booyah Bomb like that. That way your team can push in a little bit faster and a little bit more effectively, rather than trying to wait it out there like they're about to here. You do clear out the decav in this position, which is very good. This is another case of we kind of had a lot of indecision in terms of our push. After the pick on the decav, which was, again, very good, we could have started pressuring this spot here with our long range mode, either from playing the position next to the checkpoint or just playing along, but it feels like, likely because of either a callout or anything else, it feels like we kind of turned our attention away from this choke, which is, I would say, not the best idea, just because we are the only ones in this position. So the second we turn our attention away, we're actively giving ourselves a lot of weaknesses in terms of getting jumped by the enemy team. So I would say just focus in on the position you're playing rather than trying to help out your teammates behind you. I know it sounds a little bit backwards, but it is a lot more effective in the long run if you play your position. That way your team doesn't have to worry about it. As much, I should say. Slash on this forced out. Skipping along ahead. Yep. We get caught by the Rainmaker just shot because we don't have space to move. Now we're in this awkward situation once again. I like the change in defense here. It does feel like we are struggling a little bit with the AoE pressure in this particular fight. Let me just go back here for a second. I know it's been a little bit over 10 minutes, but I'm just going to continue. So, right here, we are pinning them out. We do end up using like one too many burst bombs. I think you had enough chip to drop on the Rainmaker here, I believe. You do hesitate just a little bit, and it feels like because there's such a big focus on the Rainmaker, you feel like it's good enough to turn your attention away and try and fight this blaster instead. I would just hard commit to the Rainmaker here. That way, it's a lot easier on the rest of your team, so they don't have to focus in on this. Especially because you have the ability to just immediately pick off their Rainmaker and just move on to the next target, which would be this blaster here. Here. Just make sure that when you are committing to a fight, especially like how you were before, you were committed on the Rainmaker, but then you opted to go for a different target, despite the first target you picked not really putting themselves in a better position, or you know, it's still basically ignoring a kill. That's what I'm trying to get. It feels like in those scenarios you're kind of ignoring a kill that you could get. We pick out the 96 here because they're alone. Good pick. We get a pick on the decav. Very good pick. We're trying to fight the blast here. Nice. Yep. See, this is generally what I would like to see a little bit more of. Whenever you commit to a fight, it is like most of the time you are basically getting that pick that you want. And the main thing is I want to just see a little bit more of that. Whenever you pick out a target, you commit to it. The second they're gone or they have made themselves not as threatening, that's when you can disengage from the fight, essentially. Anytime you disengage from a fight that you can win, it feels like you actively put yourself in a worse position. But anytime I've seen you engage a fight that you can clearly win, it's been like consistent, like this is a good pick, this is a good pick, this is a good pick. This Booyah Bomb is a good spot. We clear out this choke just because we know how much space it buys us. We get another pick. And back to back. We commit to a fight, we win that fight. A very unfortunate Kraken moment right there. Not much we could have done there, but we traded out quite often, so very worthwhile, I would say. Unfortunately, most of our team goes down in response, but very good push, at least in terms of the fights that we were picking. We sold it out pretty effectively here. Again, I wouldn't really like to stay in this spot too long, especially because at some point, yeah, this will just happen where they will try to AoE you out, especially with bombs and chips. You don't want to stay in this corner for too long. It does have its advantages, but you don't want to hard commit to it since it is like essentially a little box that you trap yourself in. So, really, really good fights that I'm seeing you pick compared to before. You threaten the AoE on this gal here, which is good. I think you overcommit to the space here, especially because they kind of know that you're forcing them back here. I would move on to like a different target at this point, since the second they back up here, they're not really as threatening as they were before. And I would say we're kind of back in the same habit of we're kind of sticking ourselves in a awkward position, which forces us back slowly, basically. Now, at this stage of the game, we can't really do much in response to this last push they have here. Yeah. Overall, I would say that was pretty good. I would say there's only a few adjustments I would make there. Apart from just working on the decision making here, I would just focus on making sure that we are playing our weapon in our space just a little bit more efficiently and effectively. My recommendations would be work on weapon spacing a little bit and playing off the opportunities our teammates give us, whether it be like in the opening with the brush, the second there's some sort of call out in terms of attention, push up with that in response. When it comes to calling out what fights you want to pick out, I would say commit to those fights and make sure that anytime you are given an opportunity, like for example, I saw a few times that there were opportunities where you could get a kill, but it feels like you hesitated because there's some sort of other target that was deemed as a as of bigger importance. I would say if you have the opportunity to get the kill, just get the kill and then move on to the next target. Um, if you're already in position to do so, I should say and clarify. Uh, Otherwise, pretty good. Let me know if you have any other questions, and yeah, I will catch you in the next one. Laters.